Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. You and I have a rendezvous with destiny.
You know what time it is, so sit back and get ready for the Stafford Voice, your dose of conservative in a world of liberal.
3, 2, 1.
Hey, how is it going? I'm your host, Daniel Stafford, and you are listening to The Stafford Voice, where we are conservative in a world of liberal. Tonight, we are talking about making locker room talk great again. Oh, just the idea of saying that kind of unnerves me. Anyway, let's go ahead and get things started. And as we do, I want to remind you there are many ways to listen. So, set the channel as a favorite, whatever you have to do so you don't get left behind, because if for some strange crazy reason you do miss the show, well, you can catch the replay, so just sit tight. There will be no need to panic because, hey, I've got you. And in the case you aren't already following on social media, I invite you to do so over on the Twitters at Stafford Voice, or you can look for me over on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, wherever your social media preference is. All you have to do is just search for the Stafford Voice, and we will more than likely be there. Shout at me, let me know you're there. Speaking of letting me know you're there, I want to give a shout out to some friends of mine that are hanging out in the chat room over at KLRN Radio. It's klrnradio.com/chat-room, I believe. I don't have it up. I don't have it pulled up. But if you're listening out there and you want to chat it up with some like-minded individuals, do so. We've got Tina in the room. Whoop, whoop. We got Slickery Trigger. Heck yeah. That's right. That guy builds some of the toughest holsters out on the market. Hey, Tina. Glad to see you guys with us this week. We missed you last week. You guys offer some incredible commentary, and you guys keep me energized throughout the show, so glad you're with us tonight. So let's just dive into this, shall we? And there's no better way to do that than with the bottom line. And I hate to say this, but this is the big I told you so moment. You knew well in advance what you were signing up for when you got behind him. You pressed on the Never Trumpers to jump on the bandwagon and get behind the nominee. When they refused to because they wanted to stand on principle or morals or even values, and no, not New York values, you shunned them and virtually attacked at every chance you could. And yet, they stood tall and took it all. Now you want to turn and run, abandon ship as the captain turns and points the ship towards the lighthouse light? It's your holier-than-thou attitude that advanced and perpetuated this clown show. But you didn't want to listen. You knew better. After all, you were floating on the coattails of the Chosen One. He was supposed to be the only one in the bunch of sour grapes that could defeat the machine. At least that's what you tried to sell America on, and now you want to run the other way? Absolutely not, no way, no how. This is on you. You wanted this, and now it's time to take your medicine. Sure, it tastes like crap now, but it'll make you feel better in the end, right? Wrong. You didn't listen then, and you sure as hell don't want to listen now. You made this cake, and it's high time you eat it. Oh, you don't want to? You're too good for it? Then Where have you been all these years when we've been calling for action? Where have you been all these years when we were asking for the party to right itself? Oh, probably protecting yourself. That's the only thing you care about. Kind of like the candidate we've been forced to accept. Guess what? We're still not buying it. Are we better than the next guy or gal? No. Do we know what it means to admit our faults? Yes. Have there been words and actions that I've wanted to personally take back? Sure. What about you? Or are you perfect and without fault? I'm pretty sure that's not the case. So while you're up on your high horse looking down at Humpty Trumpty, figuring out how you can put this all back together again, realize this. You are part of the problem. You've spent all that time and energy attacking the other candidate and their past and the past of their spouse, and now you want to try and either defend him because, hey, he's the man, or you want to turn and run as you've done so many times over again when the heat gets turned up in the kitchen. No. It's time to eat your cake and take your medicine. You're no better than the next. You're just as guilty. And don't think for 1 second, ladies, that you're off the hook. Be honest. How many of you bought a copy of 50 Shades of Grey and called into work the next day because you were sick? I mean, stayed up all night reading because you couldn't put down that steamy, sexy novel that was so hot. Do I condone the locker room talk? No, but then again, maybe we just need to make locker room talk great again. Seriously, rather than talk up real issues, the only thing we can continue to talk about post-debate is some guy named Ken Bone and how he was offered a role in a porno. We don't want to talk about anything of substance. No! We don't want to touch tough topics like Russia, or even dare we try and attack Obamacare because we don't want to tarnish someone's legacy. Here's the fact. Russia is building their nuclear capabilities while ours continue to sit in a closet collecting dust. Russia is asserting their force all over the region, and ISIS continues to rape, pillage, and burn complete towns, destroying the history of complete time periods. Do we want to talk about that? No! We'd rather talk about how our candidate likes to listen to the Pussycat Dolls while attacking the opponent's spouse for raping women. After all, words are just words when you compare them to actions. Remember what your mommy told you? Actions speak louder than words. Your actions tell us to look the other way. All we want to do is point out that maybe, just maybe, the people you continue to force down our throats as if our name was Monica is leaving a bad taste in our mouth. Maybe next time you'll listen to us. Then again, maybe you won't unless we say it in the locker room. In the words of B.J. Clinton, suck it. If we haven't fallen in line yet, it probably won't happen. We understand what our principles are. We understand morals as well as values. Welcome to the jungle, baby. America is more than just a battle of he said, she said. Let's quit focusing on saving ourselves and start saving America. Time will only tell, but please remember one thing. If the person you put up on the pedestal should happen to fall, let this be the moment we look back and say, I told you so. And that is the bottom line. I feel so much better now that I could get that off my chest. I genuinely feel much better having said all of that. I mean, it is completely stupid. You know, the first debate, I elected to not watch that stupid thing. I knew it was going to be a circus sideshow. Did I listen to myself the second time for this debate? No. Why? Maybe I just wanted to punish myself. I would have rather taken an ice pick and stuck them in my ears than listen to those screaming buffoons go back and forth at each other. Oh, but let's not focus on the planted questions or maybe the fact that the moderators were polishing the cankles of one Hillary Clinton. Oh, my word. Slick, thanks. I appreciate that. Said it all. What else? What did I miss? Sorry, I got on a rant there, and let's see. You missed this too. Been crazy. And by the way, Slick, whenever it gets too crazy around there, give me a shout. Let's chat things up, because the last thing I need for one of my battle buddies is to start feeling some pressure, or if you need to take a load off and you just need somebody to chat to, hit me up. We'll do it. Yeah, we all know who Trump was before they even picked him. Oh. And yes, that debate was an hour and a half of my life that I will never get back. However, I did manage to take some notes during the buffoonery. And you know what? Let's take a quick break, and we'll cover some of that stuff when we come back. Yeah, let's do that. Let's go over some notes that I made from the debate, and then maybe let's talk about how Russia is a real viable threat. Yeah, let's do it. We'll be back right after this.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Nothing will protect you quite like your sidearm, so why not give it the protection it deserves? Something as strong as the Second Amendment and stands the test of time, and better yet, made in the USA. A Rebel Road Tactical Custom Kydex holster is that and more. Call now and place your order with Rebel Road Tactical at 682-217-4579. Again, 682-217-4579, or online at rebelroadtactical.com. Some crowdfunding sites are too liberal and keep more for themselves. Even worse, if they don't like you or someone gets offended, they'll cancel your campaign. But not at RWNJ Funding. They hold true to conservative and libertarian values. Plus, they won't cave to the PC crowd. More importantly, they believe in you. RWNJFunding.com. The right cause, the right values, done right. RWNJFunding.com.
Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Conservative in a world of liberal.
The Stafford Voice.
All right, we are back. Sorry that I'm really enjoying doing that bottom line segment. I don't really know if I just want to call it a mind dump or the bottom line or a monologue, but man, I that genuinely made me feel a lot better. Wow, I'm so glad that I got that off my chest. Okay, so let's get into some of the notes from the debate. My wife is here in the studio with me, and she absolutely hates the sound of that. But it falls in line with reviewing what happened during the debate. If you didn't pick up on it, Donald Trump, I think he was doing it on purpose. I genuinely think he was taking those ignoramus sighs on purpose. He was breathing through his nose. It's like, oh, the first time I've smelled air. I like it. Oh. Yeah, instead of other things. Stuff that you'd probably only smell in a locker room. But, after all, we're here to make locker room talk great again, right? So, okay, right out of the gate, they hit them, ignoramus, another one for the mental Rolodex. Yes, buffoonery, ignoramus. Look, these are, I would have thought, Slick, that based off of some of the things I've seen you say on Twitter, that you knew those. So, anyway, I appreciate that. So, right out of the gate, they hit them on the idea of model behavior and whether they are exhibiting model behavior. And basically, Clinton, here's that we need to celebrate diversity. We're great because we're good. And we need to respect and overcome divisive issues. How that talks about anything in relation to model behavior, I don't know. But so Trump comes back and says, we have tremendous potential. We do. I agree. We do have tremendous potential. And there were a couple of things that I found myself taking note of as Hillary was saying them. And, if this gives me a one-way ticket straight to hell for saying it, so be it. There were a couple of things that I was like, wait, whoa, is this really Hillary saying this? Or am I just going crazy? I was probably gone bat crap crazy by that time. So after that, we transitioned into the whole locker room talk, the Trump tape thing. So basically, my takeaway was, sorry, we've got bigger issues. And that's basically all I took away from Trump's statement. Was, sorry, embarrassed a little bit, but we got to move on. Clinton, on the other hand, wanted to take it a little farther, and she said that she questions his fitness to be commander-in-chief, as she didn't feel or question other key Republican candidates, that is, that we've seen this all throughout his campaign. This is who Trump is. In a nutshell, that's what she said, and yeah, well, it's, again, one of those I told you so moments. So then Trump responded with, they're just words, people. Don't tell me about words when Clinton's actions are worse than what I've said. Okay. A word of advice to Mr. Trump. I want to be respectful. I don't want to be that guy that calls him out and say he's a disrespectful guy. That's not who I am. I'm not going to go there. Yeah, okay. I can't even do that with it. I can't even act like Trump while making fun of Trump without cracking a smile. Anyway, so here's a word of advice for Trump. Don't listen to what dudes say in the locker room, especially when they're stupid like Trump. When I was in the locker room, Tina, I was, oh man, this kind of falls in line with a Bill Clinton joke, and I'm just going to leave it there. I was in and out as fast as I could. Ooh! Anyway, again, locker room talk. Sorry, we're making locker room talk great again, people. So here's what I feel that only Trump could have pulled off. Holy crap. I got to flip back over because I got to make sure that I'm not missing things on the Twitters. Good buddy of mine at Protopotamus. He is hopefully watching. If he is, he needs to hit me up, give me a shout out over on the Twitters because I see him. If you guys don't follow at Protopotamus, you need to. Really, really close friend of mine. He's part of my inner circle, just like Tina and Slick. And eventually, Protopotamus and I we're gonna do a really, really cool. When do we get to talk about Mary Jane Rottencrotch? Slick, we have been. We've been talking about Hillary so far quite a few times, but Protopotamus is local to my area, and we're going to be working on a project that I can't really give too many details, but you guys know how much I love history. It falls in line with history. I fear many times that we are forgetting some of the history that's in our own backyards. And so that's one of the things that we're going to do. We're going to go out and we're going to put together some little micro documentaries that kind of tell the forgotten history. Tina face palmed about Mary Jane Rottencrotch. Okay, you guys are getting me off topic. So go follow at Protopotamus. That guy is hilarious. I love watching him and his wife are doing some new vlogging lately. They normally do just some Let's Play type stuff where they're just the two of them are playing some video games. It's absolutely hilarious. His wife is a hoot. Anyway, so let's get back to the Humpty Trump. Humpty Trumpty? Yeah, because he's falling off his high horse. Okay, so here's my advice to Humpty Trumpty, and he is the only one that could have pulled this off. What he could have his response to Hillary Clinton could have been, look, I may have said what I said about grabbing a you-know-what, but the only thing with moist fingers around here was your husband. And those women sitting right there, those 3 women who scared the crap out of your husband, are the victims of your husband and his moist fingers. And he could have just dropped the mic and walked off. It would have been over. But, I'm not running for office. Probably won't ever run for president because I've had this type of locker room talk before, and I wouldn't. Somebody like Hillary Clinton would call me out, and it would be really, really bad. So where did we leave off? They hit Hillary on emails about how, and she said that it was a mistake, and I don't make excuses. They talked about Obamacare. Bill looked like he got slapped when they came in. Yes, he did, and that was that picture needs to be posted on T-shirts. That somebody needs to make a T-shirt out of that picture. That I think it was up on Drudge, where they took the picture of Bill Clinton, the look on his face when BJ was sitting there, and those women walked in, and the look on his face as they were sitting there, he was petrified, absolutely petrified. Somebody needs to turn that into a T-shirt. I don't even want any royalties off of that. Let's see. They talked about Muslims in America. We talked about WikiLeaks, taxes. That brings me to another mic drop moment. And this one goes to Hillary Clinton. Hillary could have, the pucker factor was on full squeeze. Slick, if you would have looked at his chair, there would have been some cloth missing. He puckered that hard. Yeah. He would have ripped the fabric out of that chair. That's how bad his pucker factor. That's how high his pucker factor was. So when they brought up the idea of taxes, and they were going back and forth and sucked it right up there. Yeah, that's not the only thing he's sucked right up there. Anyway, oh, ouch. That's what she said. Ow, he did it again. Okay. So Trump basically he said this before, how he took advantage of the tax code, and he's not the only one. And he's not. A lot of Hillary's support, and he called them out. Hillary's supporters and how they have benefited from it. And Trump tried to hit her on it. She's not intelligent enough to be able to come back at him with it. So my word of advice to her would have been this: that after Trump said, You've been an elected official for the last 20 plus years, and why didn't you fix it? If it was so wrong now and so wrong then, why didn't you fix it? Here's my advice to Hillary Clinton. This is all she would have had to say. She could have dropped the mic, walked off the stage, had her handlers help her, who knows. This is all she had to say. Well, Donald, if I would have done that, you wouldn't be in the position you are, and my big question to you would have been, hey, Teflon Don, how much money have you donated to my cause to help keep me in office? Could have just dropped the mic and walked off from there, but no. She's not smart enough. Anyway, liberalism is a mental disorder. We've proven that time and time again. I did love how we were... at one point, I decided I was just going to start writing keywords down and put them in parentheses, just to kind of see where talking points were going. Here's just some of the key things that were thrown out there. When they were talking about WikiLeaks, Clinton hit on Putin and Russia and hacking and the election. We'll get to that stuff here shortly. Because, after all, Russia is a real threat. We just have to keep our eyes on them. We can't focus on this dilly-dally. She also hit on how Russia is trying to influence the election and tax returns. And Trump threw out banks and how she's friends with all of them. And then when it came to taxes, he threw out the word China. Makes me think of when Mike Tyson was doing it at the end of a boxing match. I think he lost it, and in the interview, they had asked him, Mike, what's with you? He's like, my back. Mike, what's wrong with your back? It's broken. It's spinal. Every time I hear the word China, I think of that silly little interview when he said spinal, China, spinal. Oh, somebody should do a mashup of the China spinal China. It'd be hilarious. Oh, anyway, so Trump threw out Bernie's name, and he did. He threw out Bernie's name quite a few times. I think he's trying to pander to. He's trying to pick up on all of the. Actually, Russia isn't the real threat. Sorry, I'm reading in the chat room, guys. Actually, Russia isn't the real threat. Our government is the real threat. Obama has the USA on the wrong side in the war that's coming. Better learn the language. They'll be running it soon. Yes, millennials. Sorry, I'm just catching up in the chat room. Let's make sure. Oh my gosh. Why? Oh, the one night that I don't have the YouTube chat up and people are over in the YouTube chat. Army John, 50 Shades of Gay. Oh, wow. Did I say 50 Shades of Gay? I don't think I did. Sorry, I'm just catching up on these comments because there's two different chat rooms. There's the one at KLRN Radio, and then there's the one over on the YouTube's, the live channel. Jess jumped in. Hey, Jess, I see you. Russia's prepping for war. I can tell you that. Yes, Jessica, we're going to touch on that here shortly. And as a matter of fact, probably, you know what? I'm done covering the debate notes because I'm going to catch up. I'm trying to keep up with two different chat rooms. Russia isn't asserting their force around the world. They're simply walking it into places where we've bailed out. Yes, that's true. Army John also says he watched half the debate, then switched to the Ducks versus Sharks hockey game because he knew a fist fight wasn't going to break out between Hill and Trump. Are you watching YouTube chat? Yes, I am right now. Sorry. Protopotamus is in the chat room. He says it may not be working again. It's working. I'm sorry. Look. This is a beautiful disaster, okay? It's like my dancing. It's not the prettiest thing, but I manage, okay? And I told you guys, how many buttons and switches and things. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's like 7 tabs open. There's like 6 different windows. I'm all over the place, and if there was an easier way, here, let me do this. Let me pop this chat out so I can watch over here. I'm telling you, I'm going to get this crap down, guys. We will we're going to make this show great again. The real story is our complete lack of response to that act of war. Yes, completely true, Slick. Let's change topics. Let's take a break, and when we come back, let's talk about how Russia here is a real and viable threat. I'm not saying they're the only one. I'm just saying they are a real threat, and if we continue to look the other way, it's going to be really bad. I'm your host, Daniel Stafford. You are tuned into The Stafford Voice, where we are conservative in a world of liberal. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
Conservative in a world of liberal.
The Stafford Voice.
Hey, okay, we are back. We are back. Sorry, Sorry, I'm getting text messages from people who are listening saying they're loving the show. Let me give a shout out to that guy. He is the CK1. That's the only way I've known the guy. I've known the guy for 16 years. Every now and then I will bounce some ideas off of him, and today I bounced some thoughts off of him, and I had him in stitches. So, CK1, if you're listening, thank you. I really, really appreciate it. I hope that you're able to tune in to future shows and episodes. Okay, so let's get on to this whole idea that Russia is a real threat. You know, cyber attacks, war crimes. I mean, what else could go wrong? Well, let's start with the reminder that a few weeks ago we hinted and even joked around that the government wanted to control the election process because it was seen as quote-unquote critical infrastructure. Now, I mean, that was the whole tinfoil hat moment. I got rid of that one. Anyway, they're easy to make. Maybe somebody should put a tutorial together. Okay, sorry, I'm just keeping up with the different chat rooms. Okay, where are we at? Critical infrastructure. Okay, well, look. Russia is being accused of conducting cyber attacks against political computer networks in the attempt to influence the election. Where have we heard that from? Well, here's what they're saying, and this is via the Washington Free Beacon. Quote, "These thefts and disclosures are intended to interfere with the U.S. election process." Now, this is coming from the Director of National Intelligence and the Department of Homeland Security. And they announced in a joint statement that, quote, "We believe, based on the scope and sensitivity of these efforts, that only Russia's senior-most officials could have authorized these activities." Now, the Obama administration charged that the Russian government was responsible for these high-profile hacks into the DNC that we saw during the DNC. Trust me, Russia has nothing to do with the DNC attacks. That was 110% government leaks and internal leaks. You may or may not be right with that, Slick, but we may need to get out a tinfoil hat on that one. But I'm not going to put anything past Russia. I mean, I've done extensive research on the way Russia does some of what they do, and this is not out of their reach. Sorry, Russia is in there. Look, Jessica, I'm totally with you. They went on to say that intelligence officials also warned state and local election officials to remain, quote-unquote, vigilant in protecting their systems and told them to seek federal assistance if necessary. While roughly 10 state election databases have been breached, the administration said it was not yet, quote, in a position to attribute the attacks to Russia. You can attribute it to them now or later, but I'm telling you, Russia is about 75% sure that they are completely behind this. They said, let's see, who was these were the state officials. They said, quote, this assessment is based on the decentralized nature of our election system in this country and the number of protections state and local election officials have in place. States ensure that voting machines are not connected to the internet, and there are numerous checks and balances as well as extensive oversight at multiple levels built into our election process. Okay, so this is not far off from what we had talked about a couple of weeks ago with a tinfoil hat moment. I'm telling you, and this is where that other 25% that I was hinting to earlier. Russia is taking what they're being given, but they aren't putting much effort into that area. Look, Russia, I think, is more involved in a lot of things than people really want to give notice to. They've been doing it since the early 1900s, all the way back to the start of the KGB, and you can believe your history books, or you can believe me when I say the KGB is not dead at all. Right now, Putin, who is a hardcore KGB operative and was trained and raised in the KGB, is keeping it alive. But, I mean, seriously, Russia, come on, you can do better than this. Like, war crimes. Russia's capable of war crimes, right? Okay, so here's what Horseface Kerry said about Russia and Syria and how they should be subject to war crimes. He says, Russia and the regime owe the world more than an explanation about why they keep hitting hospitals and medical facilities and women and children. He noted that the attacks by Russia, they sure aren't dead. In fact, Putin just brought it to public. The KGB is officially back. Yes, they are completely true. And by saying that, Slick, you're kind of negating what you're kind of going against what you had said earlier, that Russia has nothing to do with these attacks. I'm betting you that even if this gets traced from that whatever the information was, that if the information that Russia's supposedly being put on, but you have to study Putin and not Russia's past. No, you can't understand Putin without understanding Russia's past. In order to fully understand Putin, you have to know Russia's past. Slick, one of these days on a weekend, we'll have to chat about this. That would be a great topic that I would love to talk about. I'm working on a Saturday Slowdown about Putin and Russia and the KGB. I have about 10 years worth of research stuck away in the noggin about the KGB and Russia and the things that they've been a part of for so long. Russia today is not the Soviet Union of the Cold War. No, that was completely different. I'm talking about farther back than that. We're talking about going all the way back to World War I and World War II. And, I mean, there is a pattern that there is a pattern with Russia in relation to what we are seeing. There is a pattern. That's all I'm going to say. Slick will... We'll talk about it. We'll have to talk about it on a different show. There is so much to go into on that. But let's stick to. I gotta quit reading the chat room. No, because if I quit reading the chat room, then I miss all of the good dialogue from you guys. Okay, let's stay on topic. What else was Horseface? I would love to. Okay, great. He says that he noted that the attacks by Russia and the regime of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad on soft targets were, quote, way beyond accidental. I completely agree with what he's saying there. These actions beg for an appropriate investigation of war crimes. This was even kind of echoed by the United Nations chief Ban Ki-moon when he was talking about these deliberate attacks, about how they're a slaughterhouse. And he said, those using ever more destructive weapons know exactly what they are doing. They know they are committing war crimes. He didn't even name any countries, but he was referring to Syria and this offensive that's happening in Aleppo, and Russia being involved. We're going to have to devote some time into breaking down what is happening out of... There's so much I wish I could share about KGB, Russian intel, CIA, and US intel. It's kind of my thing. Slick, you're starting to tell me that you're a brother from another mother. I'll hit you up on some email about this. We're going to need to put our heads together. There's way too much stuff to cover in relation to Russia. They're even advertising, and they're throwing it in people's face. Oh, Tina found us over on the Twitters, or not the Twitters. Jesus, she's over on the Twitters. She already found us there. She's on the YouTubes. I hope that you're enjoying watching. It's something new. You're in both chat rooms, I see. That's a big plus. Thank you so much for that. But look, Russia's going around moving all of their nuclear weapons, their nuclear capable weapons, that is. They're moving them to outposts, and all they're saying is that they're holding military exercises. Take that for what you will. But this is their way of trying to get the West to back down. That's all it is. They're trying to use their power and influence those in the West to back down and get out of their way so they can continue to march back to the way things were before the 80s. I mean, even Mikhail Gorbachev had a warning about this. He said, quote, I think the world has reached a dangerous point. I don't want to give any concrete prescriptions, but I do want to say that this needs to stop. We need to renew dialogue. Stopping it was the biggest mistake. Then he goes, he says it's necessary to return to the main priorities. These are nuclear disarmament, the fight against terrorism. Then he goes completely batcrap crazy by saying the prevention of an environmental disaster. But then he says, compared to these challenges, all the rest slips into the background. Look, we have some incredible issues that we are faced with today. And we are overconsumed by locker room talk. It really is infuriating. And trust me, I'm not condoning anything. Slick, do you have any doubt a return to a Soviet bloc and a Cold War is what Putin would love to revive? Ron, bingo. It's what he's been doing over the last few years. He's been taking everything back that they lost in the 80s, and he's trying to take it all the way back. I mean, anyway, we're... Interesting. Slick, I'm telling you, we're going to have to talk. Okay, speaking of talking, let's get into one of our favorite segments, and that is Profiles in History. It was the night of April 18th, 1775, he stood watching through a window dressed in a nightshirt as the British troops marched past on their way to Lexington and Concord. Some of the soldiers broke away from the main unit, heading toward the inn in Menotomy, Massachusetts. Because he was a member of the Massachusetts Provisional Congress and in opposition to the British, he would likely have been a target, so he fled out the back door of the inn and hid in a cornfield. Elbridge Gerry was born on July 17th, 1744, in Marblehead, Massachusetts. He was first educated by private tutors and attended Harvard shortly before turning 14, receiving his master's in 1765 before entering the family business. Now, he became a successful merchantman while in the family business as they were exporting dried cod to the West Indies and Europe. It was around this time when he became interested in politics. Elbridge was an early vocal opponent to Parliament's efforts to tax colonies after the end of the French and Indian War in 1763. He soon sat on the Marblehead Committee in 1770 that sought to enforce importation bans on British goods. In May 1772, he won election to the General Court of Province of Massachusetts Bay, where he worked closely with Samuel Adams to advance colonial opposition to parliamentary colonial policies. He helped establish Marblehead's Committee of Correspondence, but an incident of mob action prompted him to resign from the committee the following year. Gerry re-entered politics in 1774 when Marblehead became a port where relief supplies from other colonies would be delivered. He would be elected as a representative to the First Continental Congress in September of 1774, but refused as he was still grieving the loss of his father. Elbridge was elected to the Provincial Assembly, which was reconstituted as the Massachusetts Provincial Congress after Governor Thomas Gage dissolved it in October of 1774. Now, while there, he was assigned to the Committee of Safety and was responsible for assuring the province's limited supplies of weapons and gunpowder stayed out of British hands. It was his actions that were partly responsible for the storage of weapons and ammunition in Concord, which were a target of a British raiding expedition that sparked the start of the American Revolutionary War with the battles of Lexington and Concord in April of 1775. Now, although Elbridge Gerry was a skinny man and spoke with a bit of a stammer, his poor speaking skills never stopped him from voicing his opinion when called as a delegate representing his state, Massachusetts, in the Continental Congress. His friend John Adams called him, quote, a faithful friend and an ardent, preserving lover of his country. He served in the Second Continental Congress from February 76 to 1780 and was very, very influential in convincing a number of delegates to support the passing of the Declaration of Independence. Now, after its passing, Benjamin Harrison was caught joking with him about what would happen if they were captured by the British, saying, quote, I shall have a great advantage over you, Mr. Gerry, when we are all hung for what we are doing. From the size and weight of my body, I shall die in a few minutes, but from the lightness of your body, you will dance in the air an hour or two before you're dead. Summing up his work during the convention, Adams said, quote, if every man here was a Gerry, the liberties of America would be safe against the gates of earth and hell. Now, Elbridge consistently advocated for a strong delineation between states and federal government powers. He sought to maintain individual liberties by providing checks on government power that might abuse or even limit those freedoms. And while working at the 1787 Constitutional Convention, he argued many points, even being labeled a maverick as he would often be found flip-flopping. However, in the end, he chose not to sign his name to the document, being the Constitution, that is. One reason was because he felt the vice president shouldn't be the head of the Senate. But the main reason for his objection was the lack of a Bill of Rights. He expressed his opposition, publishing a widely circulated letter where he was attacked in the press, with Henry Jackson being exceptionally vicious, saying, quote, "Gary has done more injury to this country by that infamous letter than he will be able to make atonement in his whole life." The opposition didn't last. The New York Daily Advertiser in April of 1789 said he had, quote, "become the avowed friend of the Constitution." Now, President Adams sent him, along with Charles Cotesworthy Pinckney and John Marshall, to try and make peace with France. The French foreign minister at the time was seeking bribes from the United States through intermediaries, later referred to as the XYZ affair. Now, Americans were enraged, and Gary stayed in France to try and smooth things over. With his eventual return, Elbridge would run for governor of Massachusetts several times before he eventually succeeded in 1810, 11, and 1812. During his last term, party leaders redrew the voting district lines to limit the opposing party to only one district. The shape of that district was so distorted that it actually looked like a lizard, giving rise to the term gerrymander, which is a process by which electoral districts are drawn with the aim of aiding the party in power. The following year, he would be defeated, which would only free him up to run as vice president for James Madison's second term as president. He was inaugurated as vice president on March 4th, 1813. Just 1 year and 8 months later, Elbridge Gerry was on his way to preside over the Senate, a duty he had once argued against. On November 23rd, 1814, he suddenly fell ill while visiting Joseph Norse of the Treasury Department, dying not long after returning home. He died penniless and was buried at the expense of the public, and is the only signer of the Declaration of Independence buried in Washington, D.C. John Adams said Gary, quote, "devoted himself, his fortune, and his family in the service of his country." And that is this week's Profiles in History. I'm telling you, I absolutely love Profiles in History. Here in a couple of weeks, we're going to, if you haven't noticed, we're going in alphabetical order of those who signed the Declaration of Independence. And tonight was supposed to be Benjamin Franklin. However, there is so much to go over and sort through in relation to Benjamin Franklin and everything that he's done. It is consuming all of my extra free time in going through it all. And I fear that as I try and condense a lot of it to do for the show and keep it in a short segment, that we're going to lose a lot of what we need to have. So with that, we may just wind up having to devote one show to Benjamin Franklin and learning about him. And oh man, it is extremely fun, believe it or not, to take a peek into who these guys were, and even taking a look at their wives. Daniel needs to teach a U.S. history class on radio. Well, Ron, that's kind of what we do with Profiles in History. Every week we take a look at one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. We break it down. We look at who they were. We start at their childhood, and we go all the way up until their death, that is. After we're done with that, I have no idea what we're going to tackle after that. I have I take that back. I do have one idea, and that is to take an extremely detailed look at the Constitution alongside, side by side, the Constitution on one side and the Declaration of Independence on the other, and how they go hand in hand. I think that would be really, really fun to do and put together and dissect for you guys. Yes, Slick, we may have to come up with a good list of great generals. I agree. So obviously we're quickly learning that there is no shortage of things that we can cover for our Profiles in History, whether we continue the Profiles in History segment or what. But probably one of my favorite segments, and a lot of you guys tend to agree with that as well. Sadly, I have to report that this week there is no Who Said That. Oh, I know. There's no Who Said That. Yes, Donald and Hillary were enough. I think I almost threw up in my mouth a couple of times talking about Hillary and Trump so much tonight. It was absolutely sickening. Okay, so I realize we are out of time. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for this week. If you are over on the YouTubes and you're watching live, please don't go anywhere, because the show will continue for just a couple of minutes as we wind things down for an after the show. So, almost threw up. I got an effing bucket here. Yes, I've got one too, but the trash bag smells like vanilla. Anyway, okay, getting off topic. We're running out of time. God willing, I, your host, Daniel Stafford, host of the Stafford Voice, will be back next week. You can follow me on the Twitters at Stafford Voice. You can look me up on the Facebooks, the Instagrams, the Snapchats, wherever you're at social media-wise. All you got to do is just look for the Stafford Voice. We'll be there. You can email your questions, comments, or concerns, even ideas that you've got. You can send them to me. I personally answer everyone by myself. I'm not one of those big major productions that's got a team of people responding. I do it myself. You can do so, thestaffordvoice@gmail.com. Again, that's thestaffordvoice@gmail.com. Thank you so much for your time, and until next week, thanks, and God bless.